kind enough to call in sleep deprived because he is a lead pipe wielding professional who makes sure he's on top of a major story like Shohei Ohtani blowing out his pitching elbow. He is none other than Jeff Passan from the Worldwide Leader in Sports back here on the program. How are you, Jeff?
I'm well, Rich. How are you?
I'm doing. Are you caffeinated? Are you highly caffeinated right now?
No, I'm not caffeinated. What I'm doing is what I like to refer to as overcompensation. When I don't sleep, I try and come in at the beginning like super energized,
Yes,
just to like set a tone so that when I inevitably fade later in the conversation, you don't judge me too harshly for it.
I appreciate the roadmap. Thank you. You're a good man. That's a great roadmap, Jeff. Let's just jump right into it then while you have your energy. I'm gutted. What the hell, man? We can't have nice things. Huh? Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, elbows really suck. Like, that's sort of the moral of the story here. I spent 4+ years of my life writing a book about them, and I just saw, like, sadness after sadness after sadness, and it scares me now because my child, is 15 years old and throws hard, and I'm worried that I'm going to be like the moron father who wrote the book on something and still couldn't keep his kid from, suffering that injury. And there's a very harsh reality, Rich, when it comes to baseball players, and it's this. The harder you throw, the likelier you are to get hurt. And the way that baseball players are taught these days is that velocity matters. And they're taught that velocity matters because guess what? It does. The harder you throw, the more effective you are. That's just what the numbers tell us. They do not lie about that. And while we can all sit here and romanticize Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine and the elite nibblers of any particular era, they're not the norm. And they certainly, I don't think, would play as well in this velocity-rich environment these days that exists. Maybe Maddux just because he could move the ball, but Glavine, I don't think would be quite the same. And it's the reason that you've seen the average fastball velocity jump up above 94 miles an hour. It's a staggering number considering where we were a quarter century ago, that, we've gone from a good fastball, like a very good fastball being 94, 95, to that just being like the barrier of entry for any pitcher now. And Shohei Ohtani at 6'4", 230 pounds, with the ability to generate force the way he does, throws the ball about as hard as anyone.
And the vagaries of that body part or body joint and its associated ligaments just shows that Ohtani is human now that it's twice now. So what can you tell us about what the Angels did learn and the immediate aftermath moving forward?
I don't know the details of that yet. So there's going to be some, I'm not even going to call it speculation, but I will say this. I think if it were a small tear or a partial tear that could have been done through rehabilitation, that Perry Manassi and the general manager probably would not have come out and said as clearly and concisely as he did that there's a tear in the UCL. Generally speaking, that when a general manager comes out and is that clear with the injury and isn't talking about forearm tightness or talking about the flexor mass or talking about any of those things in very specific language like that, that means Tommy John surgery is probably coming. Now, I hope I'm wrong about this, but let's remember the last time Ohtani had it. I don't know if you recall this, but during the winter meetings, like right around when he signed, I got tipped off that his elbow was not clean. And I wrote something about it, and the Angels came out and said, yeah, he's fine. And then 6 months later, it blew out finally. So he tried at that point to use platelet-rich plasma, which is a biologic that you can inject into the elbow in hopes that these healing cells are going to essentially repair a small tear. But when it's a full thickness tear, or when it's close to a full thickness tear, there's nothing you can do except go into the elbow and tie off a new ligament there and hope this one keeps better than the last one did.
Jeff Passan from ESPN and the author of The Arm, Inside the Billion-Dollar Mystery of the Most Valuable Commodity in Sports, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. So, you can hit with this? You can?
Yeah, when you are, Ohtani's perfect to hit with this because he's a throw right, bat left. And so the right arm for a left-handed hitter, it tends to use more of the lateral side than the medial side, and the medial side is where the ulnar collateral ligament is. So even when you're coming back, you can hit. Now, I don't want to be too presumptive here saying that Ohtani post-surgery, if in fact that is the route this thing goes, is going to keep hitting, because I just don't know what he and his new team and or the Angels are going to be comfortable with, right? Like, it's one thing to hit the first time you're coming back, but when you have a second reconstruction of the ulnar collateral ligament, the return time takes longer. The rehabilitation takes longer. Everything about it is problematic and troublesome, and there are opportunities for things to go really awry. So I don't know for certain if Ohtani is going to keep hitting throughout it. Maybe he takes a little more time or gets through the pitching rehab process more than he did the first time, because the first time he was, had the surgery in November, was back hitting in May. So, and we saw that exact same, or I think he had a surgery in October and was back in May. The November to May timetable was Bryce Harper this year. So it's clear, I think, that Ohtani will not lose a whole lot of time batting, but this is also, as is everything with him, this is something we're dealing with for the first time. And so it will be really interesting to see what the medical professional's perspective is on this.
Jeff Passan of ESPN here on the Rich Eisen Show. I know it's too soon, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How does this impact his free agency, do you think? What's going to happen here?
I think I'm in the minority here. I think I'm in the minority, and I don't think it's going to impact it a whole lot. Now, I understand that, look, he was on track to get 600, 650, 700 million. I still think he's going to get 500.
So you think 500, because that would mean he's going to be paid as both hitter and pitcher?
No, not necessarily. I think, we can look at this in a number of different ways. Ken Rosenthal, I thought, in the column he wrote, brought up a really good point that Juan Soto is just a hitter, and he turned down $440 million. Now, granted, that was for a longer period of time, and he was younger, but that was still $440 million that was on the table. Aaron Judge, who was older, and who also doesn't pitch, got $360 million from the Yankees this offseason. Shohei Ohtani is the biggest star in baseball. It's not even close. If you want to take the star power of practically everybody else, it is not as luminescent as Ohtani by himself. So I think the ability to market him and to supercharge the valuation of your franchise just by having him around is, I'm no expert, but I would put, a pretty hefty price tag on that. And then, Rich, let's just say hypothetically that Ohtani comes back as a start. Great, huge value there. Let's say he comes back as a reliever. Are you telling me that for a 10-year contract, 10-year deal, you're not going to give him 50, 100 to be a closer when Edwin Diaz is getting 100 to be a closer for 5 years? I just, when you have all these teams that are going to be fighting for him and all these other factors there, I really do think that it's going to make its way back to 500.
Closer, huh? I mean, you're talking about, again, you wrote the book On the Elbow, so it would just be, he'd be handled in a way, or just you figure it's less stress than starting, right? I mean...
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And I am not going to sit here and suggest that Shohei Ohtani should be a closer, because only he knows what his body is capable of. But I think if I'm a team looking at, okay, what do I do here? How do we keep this guy whose bat warrants us signing him until he's 40 years old? How do we keep the value there with him? I don't think relief pitching is out of the question at all, especially for a guy who's now potentially going to have had 2 Tommy Johns.
What a bummer, man. I wanted him to hit free agency coming off of a Cy Young and an MVP, or at least close to a Cy Young. He's definitely MVP.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's still probably going to win MVP.
Right. So, no, there's no question. I mean, I don't know. I mean, who? Well, that's for another day. Who would be even in the running? But for me, free agency hits. He's gonna have to have the surgery, right? Then somebody's gonna have to sit there and get all the medical reports and sit him down and ask him, what does he want? Obviously, his agent is going to basically say he wants to do both, because you're going to want the most money when you're hitting free agency. And then we'll have to find out who's got the stomach for it. I guess the only comparison is Kevin Durant hit free agency with a blown out Achilles, but that's not like, yeah, I mean, the Nets gave him $194 million for that, but Achilles is not, pitching elbow. Where
I don't know, dude. Achilles for an explosive athlete kind of is like pitching elbow.
Okay. So I guess you could go to the Yankees and Red Sox and say Durant, got his money. We should get ours. That's what I'm saying. And I know this is very soon, but this is the conversation that's going to happen, and it's going to take over everything.
This is the conversation that's happening in front offices right now. And part of me wonders if there are going to be teams that get involved in the Ohtani sweepstakes that wouldn't have before this, because they feel like they're going to be able to potentially get a good deal. Sometimes agents start off with lower price points because they want to create bidding wars, and that once you bid for the first time, you feel so invested in it that maybe you go beyond what you would have otherwise. I just think there's a confluence of things look, yes, Ohtani is going to lose money compared to where he was going to be before the injury. But I still think he's going to end up with the biggest contract a baseball player's ever gotten.
Oh, sure. It'll be generationally brilliant. And so I guess, to wrap this up, Jeff Passan of ESPN here on the Rich Eisen Show, is now we're here in the guessing game of what's Ohtani thinking. Before it was, does he want big market, small market? What type of market does he want? Now, he knows what it takes to come back from Tommy John surgery, which, again, we're all assuming he's going to have. Do you think, if we can get in his brain right now, would he want to pitch again, right? Is he going to be so competitive, I'm going to show you? I'm just wondering if he'd be like, you know what? I'm such an incredible hitter. I can make an incredible amount of money and play for a much longer time if I just do one thing. And that was always the conversation when he first started, is that enjoy it while you're seeing it, folks, because it's not going to last a whole long time. I'm wondering how this might affect things for him moving forward on this front.
I just look at it this way. Shohei Ohtani could have quit pitching or hitting and focused on one of them a long, long time ago. His identity is as a two-way player. That is who he is. That is who he wants to be. That was the imperative thing for him coming over, finding an organization that was not going to prioritize one or the other and was not going to push him in that sort of direction. So in order to give that up, I don't see that happening unless his arm is telling him you can't do this anymore. And, one thing you got to know about Shohei Ohtani is he doesn't take very kindly to people telling him what he can and cannot do.
And that includes the baseball gods, I'd imagine, right?
No, I think that's a very fair point. He goes so all out in his training that part of me, and far be it from me to criticize someone who can actually pull this off, but it reminds me in a lot of ways actually of Bryce Harper in his mid-20s when he kept getting hurt because he was playing recklessly. And I think Shohei Ohtani, as he approaches 30 years old, if he wants to play both ways, is going to have that recognition that the body is changing. And this is a body that has taken him to amazing heights, but also at inopportune times has turned on him because he was simply asking too much of it. And if that means training a little bit differently, I think that's going to be something that this potential surgery will teach him, and that he is an extremely learned, interested, intelligent person. And the only thing that's going to stop him from coming back is the instincts that he has that tell him he has to do everything at the peak at all times, when, as old men like us, Mr. Eisen, learn, sometimes a little bit slower is a little bit better because you don't wind up sitting in bed that night popping Advil.
You know what? I appreciate you including yourself in that, even though I know I'm much older than you.
I'm the one with the broken back.
I know. You feeling all right?
So
are you good?
The sucker among us.
You good? You good? You're right? You're feeling all right? Best you can?
Yeah, doing okay.
Okay. All right.
We're not talking about a finely tuned athlete here to begin with, so the baseline's a little different.
I got one last one for you, and I apologize if I'm putting you in a position by asking it this way, but you can handle all sorts of figurative curveballs, and you'd also know the answer to this question. Does Hal Steinbrenner have a pulse? Does he have a pulse? Does it exist? Is he breathing?
Yes.
Is he alive?
Yes. In fact, I think Hal Steinbrenner's pulse is healthy compared to his father's.
Yes. Well, that's what I'm wondering. I don't know where, the Yankees need a seance is what I tweeted out the other day. And also when I saw a report that Hal had a discussion with his general manager and manager about what's happening. They talked about it. And I'm like, George said you're fired, and Hal's like, we're mired. That's what he's saying. So that's what I'm wondering. What's going on there? What do we have?
Why do we romanticize George Steinbrenner being like? I understand George Steinbrenner won championships. That's why we romanticize it.
Yes.
But George Steinbrenner would be like the king of the toxic workplace environment.
Yes.
Lawsuit from people who are working that. If you drop George Steinbrenner in 2023, he would be gone within 2 weeks.
I know we romanticize, but he wouldn't countenance this in a way that it appears his son does.
You know what? I got accused. I went on with our buddy Michael Kay a couple days ago, and I got accused of like being a shill for the Yankees. I'm just trying to be as pragmatic as possible in my assessment here. The Yankees, over the last 5 years, have won 103, 102, 92, and 99 games. I understand they're having a bad year this year, and I understand it's going in the wrong direction. But to suggest that the Yankees haven't been effective, I'm sorry, I just don't buy it. And yes, we are up against a phone call from Bristol here. So,
all right,
Mr. Eisen,
take care, Jeff. You be well.
And I'll talk to you later.
Take care, bud. You be well. That's Jeff Passan, everybody. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.